All the Greek leaders spent the rest of the night by the ships, wrapped in the soft arms of sleep. But Agamemnon, son of Atreus, shepherd of the people, had too much on his mind for easeful rest. As Zeus, husband of lovely-haired Hera, flashes lightning to herald a hailstorm, deluge, or blizzard, and mantle the fields with snow, or to open the gaping jaws of bitter war, so Agamemnon uttered groan after groan from the depths of his being, and his heart trembled with fear. When he glanced out across the Trojan plain, he was amazed by the innumerable Trojan fires burning in front of Ilium, the music of their various reed pipes, and the voices of their troops. And when he looked at the Greek ships and his own army, he tore the hair from his head by the roots, appealing to Zeus in Olympus, and groaned loud in his great heart. In the end, he could think of nothing better than to go straight to Nestor, son of Neleus, in the hope that together they might hit on some unbeatable plan for saving the expedition from disaster. So he got up, put on his tunic, bound a pair of fine sandals on his gleaming feet, threw over his shoulders the glossy pelt of a great tawny lion which came down to his ankles, and picked up his spear. Sleep did not come easily to Menelaus either. He too was obsessed by anxiety for the Greeks, who for his sake had come to Troy across a great expanse of water to start this audacious campaign. He threw a spotted leopard skin around his broad shoulders, took up his bronze helmet and put it on, picked up his spear in his great hand, and set out to rouse his brother, lord of all the Greeks, and honoured like a god by his people. He found him by the stern of his ship, slinging his fine armour on his shoulders. Agamemnon was delighted to see him, but Menelaus, master of the battle cry, was the first to speak. "My dear brother, why are you arming like this? Are you sending a man out to spy on the Trojans? I am much afraid you won't find anyone willing to accept that duty. It would take a brave heart indeed to venture out alone through the immortal night and spy on the enemy camp." Lord Agamemnon replied and said, "Olympian-bred Menelaus, you and I need a plan, and a clever one, to protect and secure the Greeks and our ships now that Zeus has turned against us. It's clear that Hector's offerings mean more to him than ours, that a single man, and no son of the gods either, should do the damage in the course of a day that Hector has done to our army is something quite outside my experience. But the fact remains that he has struck us blows which we will feel to our cost for many a long day to come. But set off now past the ships and fetch Ajax and Idomeneus, while I go to godlike Nestor and tell him to get up. I want him to visit the guard posts, which are so important, and keep the sentries on their toes. They will pay more attention to him than anyone, since his own son and Idomeneus' attendant Meriones are in command. We put them in special charge." Menelaus, master of the battle cry, replied, "Very well, but what instructions do you have for me? Am I to stay with Ajax and Idomeneus, and wait for you to join us, or run back to you when I've given them their orders?" Agamemnon, lord of men, replied, "Stay with them, or you and I may miss each other among all the paths that cross the camp. And speak up to the men wherever you go. Tell them to remain on alert, and mention their lineage and their father's name. Compliment them all, and don't stand on ceremony. We too must do our part. Zeus seems to have decreed serious hardship for us at the moment of our birth." With these careful words of instruction, Agamemnon dismissed his brother, and himself went in search of Nestor, shepherd of the people. He found him lying on a soft bed beside his hut and black ship. At his side lay his ornate arms, a shield, 2 spears, and a shining helmet. Also the glittering belt the old man put on when he armed himself to lead his men into the killing fields. For whatever the danger, he made no concessions to wretched old age. Nestor, raising himself on his elbow and lifting his head, called out and challenged Agamemnon. "Who goes there, wandering about the camp alone, close to the ships at the dead of night when everyone else is asleep? Are you looking for a stray mule or one of your friends? Speak up, but stay where you are till you answer. What is your business here?" Agamemnon, lord of men, replied, "Nestor, son of Neleus, great glory of the Greeks, you will recognize Agamemnon, son of Atreus, the man Zeus has singled out for unending trouble as long as breath remains in my body and strength in my limbs. I'm wandering about because I'm much too worried about the war and our plight to enjoy a moment's sleep. I am so afraid for my people that my self-control has deserted me. I'm beside myself. My heart is leaping out of my chest and my knees trembling. But you aren't sleeping any better than I am. If you want to do something, come with me and visit the sentries to make sure they haven't fallen asleep from exhaustion and lack of rest, forgetting all about their duties. The enemy are camped very close, and we know nothing of their plans. They might even be up for a night attack." Nestor, the Gerenian charioteer, replied, "Most glorious Agamemnon, lord of men, Zeus, wise in counsel, is not going to let Hector realize all the high hopes he is presently entertaining. On the contrary, I reckon Hector will have even more to worry about than ever if Achilles has a change of heart and abandons his present unrelenting rage. Of course I will go with you, but let us wake some of the others in their turn. Diomedes, the great spearman, Odysseus, swift-footed Ajax, son of Oileus, and strong Magus. Someone should also go and call up the other 2, godlike Ajax, son of Telamon, and Lord Idomeneus, whose ships are at the end of the line and some way off. But what's up with Menelaus? I like and respect him, but I do feel critical of him, and won't hide my feelings, even if it makes you angry. He should not be asleep at a time like this, leaving all the work to you. He ought to have been up and doing among all our leading men, entreating them to lend a hand. The situation is desperate." Agamemnon, lord of men, said, "Venerable sir, there are times when I would indeed be glad to see you taking him to task. He is often inclined to do nothing and let things slide, not through laziness or stupidity, but because he looks to me to take the lead. Tonight, however, he got up well before me and came to see me. I have already sent him out to call up the 2 men you mentioned, so let's be going. We shall find them with sentries outside the gates, where I told them to meet." Nestor, the Gerenian charioteer, replied, "In that case, no one will have a word to say against him, or fail to pay attention when he takes command and urges them on." With these words he got into his tunic and bound a pair of fine sandals on his gleaming feet. Next he put on a purple cloak and fastened it with a brooch. It was a long double-folding cloak with a thick nap on the wool. Finally he picked up a strong spear with a sharp point of bronze and set out on his way past the ships with the bronze-armoured Greeks. The first man that Nestor, the Gerenian charioteer, woke up was Odysseus, equal in invention to Zeus. He gave him a call, and as soon as he heard it, Odysseus came out of his hut and questioned his visitors. Why are you wandering about on your own through the men's huts and the ships at this time of night? What brings you here? It must be something serious." Nestor, the Gerenian charioteer, replied, "Olympian-born son of Laertes, resourceful Odysseus, don't be annoyed at us. The Greeks are indeed in serious trouble, but come along with us and let's wake up some of the others we ought to consult before deciding whether to leave or fight on." So he spoke, and quick-thinking Odysseus went into his hut, slung his ornate shield on his back, and followed them. They went next to Diomedes, son of Tydeus, and found him lying there some way outside his hut with his armour. His men were sleeping round him with their shields for pillows. The spiked butt ends of their spears were stuck in the ground, and the bronze points flashing in the distance like lightning from Father Zeus. The warrior was asleep, with the hide of a farmyard ox underneath him and a glossy rug drawn under his head. Nestor, the Gerenian charioteer, went up to him, gave him a kick, woke him up, and said jokingly, "Wake up, son of Tydeus! Why are you sleeping in luxury all night long? Has it escaped your notice that the Trojans are camped out near our ships on the high ground just above us, and virtually nothing separates us?" So he spoke, and Diomedes, who had woken and leapt up at great speed, spoke winged words. "You're a tough one, my old fellow, always on the go. Haven't we got any younger men to do the rounds and wake up all the leaders? You're quite impossible, old man." Nestor, the Gerenian charioteer, said, "My friend, all that is very true. I have my handsome sons and plenty of troops to do the rounds and call people up. But we are in a critical position, on a razor's edge, an unpleasant death for every Greek or else deliverance. However, if you are feeling sorry for me, and you are the younger man, go yourself and wake up Meges and swift-footed Ajax, son of Oileus." So he spoke, and Diomedes threw round his shoulders the glossy skin of a great lion, which reached to his feet, picked up his spear, and went on his way. When he roused the two men from their huts, he brought them along with him. The party then visited the guards at their posts, but failed to catch any of their leaders asleep. They were all sitting there with their weapons on the alert. As dogs keep uneasy watch over their flocks in a farmyard, having heard some savage animal coming down from the mountains into a wood, and the hue and cry of men and hounds behind it, and all thoughts of sleep are banished. So sweet sleep was banished from the eyes of the sentries as they kept watch throughout that unfriendly night. All their attention was turned toward the plain to catch the first sign of any Trojan movement. Old Nestor was delighted to see them like this, encouraged them, and spoke winged words. "That's the way, lads, carry on. Let no one take a nap, or we'll give the enemy something to cheer about." With these words he crossed the ditch, followed by the Greek leaders who had been summoned to the council. Meriones and Nestor's noble son Thrasymedes came with them too, having been invited to assist at the conference. Leaving the ditch behind them, they sat down in an open place where the ground was clear of bodies. It was the very spot where imperious Hector had turned back from slaughtering the Greeks when night descended on the battlefield. Seated there, they started to exchange ideas. Nestor, the Gerenian charioteer, began and spoke his mind. "My friends, couldn't someone with enough daring and confidence pay these arrogant Trojans a visit, on the chance of cutting off a straggler from the enemy? He might even overhear some talk about their intentions, and so find out whether they mean to stay in their advanced position by our ships or retreat back into town after inflicting this defeat on the Greeks. If he discovered that and returned in one piece, his fame would spread worldwide. He'll be splendidly rewarded too. Every ship's commander will give him a black ewe with its suckling lamb, a reward second to none, and he will be invited to all their dinners and ceremonial feasts. So he spoke, and was received in complete silence by them all. Then Diomedes, master of the battle cry, addressed them. Nestor, this adventure appeals to me. The Trojan camp isn't far off either. I'll visit it, but if someone else came with me, I'd feel more comfortable and also more inclined to take a risk. When men work in pairs, one sees advantage, the other would miss, while a man on his own may see the possibilities but lack the necessary imagination and intelligence. So Diomedes spoke, and many volunteered to go with him. Both the Ajaxes, attendants of Ares, wished to go. So did Meriones, and Nestor's son Thrasymedes was eager. The famous spearman Menelaus also volunteered, and daring Odysseus also wanted to steal in among the Trojan troops. Adventure was always dear to him. Agamemnon, lord of men, now addressed them. Diomedes, son of Tydeus, my pride and joy, pick the companion you want, the very best of volunteers. There are plenty of them. Don't let undue deference make you leave the better man and take the worse out of respect for his birth, not even if he is of higher rank. So he spoke, in terror for his brother, auburn-haired Menelaus. Diomedes, master of the battle cry, then addressed them. If you are really instructing me to choose my companion myself, how could I overlook godlike Odysseus, who puts a willing heart and soul into everything he does, and Pallas Athene loves him too. With this man beside me, we could go through blazing fire and still get back. His intelligence is without equal. All-daring godlike Odysseus said, Diomedes, don't sing my praises or faults. You are talking to men who know all this already. Let's be off. The night is well advanced. It's nearly dawn. The stars are past their zenith, and a good 2/3 of the night is gone, leaving us the third watch only. With these words they slung on their formidable gear. Resolute Thrasymedes gave Diomedes a two-edged sword, as he had left his own behind beside his ship, together with a shield. On his head he put an ox-hide helmet without cheek plates or crest, the sort called skull cap, which young men wear to protect their heads. Meriones gave Odysseus a bow, a quiver, and a sword, and put a cleverly made leather helmet on his head. On the inside there was a strong lining of interwoven straps, onto which a felt cap had been sewn in. The outside was cleverly adorned all round with rows of white tusks from a shiny-toothed boar, the tusks running in alternate directions in each row. This helmet originally came from Ilion, where Autolycus stole it from Amnitor by breaking into his well-protected house. Autolycus gave it to Amphidamas of Cythera to take to Scandaia, and Amphidamas gave it to Molus in return for hospitality. Molus, in his turn, gave it to his son Meriones to wear, and now it was Odysseus's head that it served to protect. Armed in this formidable manner, the pair set out, leaving all the chieftains there. Pallas Athene sent them a lucky omen, a heron close to their path on the right. The night was too dark for them to see the bird, but they heard it squawk, and Odysseus, pleased by the omen, offered a prayer to Athene. "Hear me, daughter of Zeus, who drives the storm cloud. You that stand by me in all my adventures and never forget me when I go into action. Tonight, Athene, show me your special favor and grant that we come back to the ships with some great deed to our credit, which will give the Trojans something to think about." Diomedes, master of the battle cry, followed him with a prayer of his own. "Daughter of Zeus, Atriotone, hear me also. Be with me as you were with my godlike father, Tydeus, when he went into Thebes as ambassador for the Greeks, leaving their army on the banks of the Aesopus. He went there with an offer of peace for the Thebans, but on his way back he performed heroics, seeing off their ambush in which you helped him, celestial goddess, with your keen support. Stand willingly by me now and watch over me, and in return you shall have from me a year-old heifer, broad in the brow, which has never worked or been led under the yoke. She will be sacrificed to you, with gold leaf round her horns." So they prayed, and Pallas Athene heard them. When their prayers to the daughter of great Zeus were finished, they set out through the black night like a pair of lions, picking their way through the slaughter, the bodies, the armor, and the black blood. Hector did not allow the proud Trojans much time to sleep either. He called together all the leading men, their rulers and leaders, and when he had gathered them round him, put a carefully considered plan to them. "Will anyone take on and see through this job I have in mind? There will be a rich reward, which I can guarantee. I will give the best chariot and pair of thoroughbreds in the Greek camp to the man who dares. It will mean glory for him to approach their ships and find out whether they are guarded as usual, or whether, as a result of their defeat at our hands, they are already discussing the possibility of flight, and are so utterly exhausted that they are not troubling to keep watch during the night." So he spoke, and was received in complete silence by them all. But among the Trojans present was the son of a sacred herald, Diomedes, Dolon, a rich man with plenty of gold and bronze. His appearance was certainly unattractive, but he was fast on his feet, and in a family of 6 he was the only son. This man then spoke his mind to Hector and the Trojans. "Hector, the adventure appeals to me. I volunteer to approach the Greek ships and find out the situation. But first, will you hold up this staff and swear to give me the horses and bronze-inlaid chariot that matchless Achilles drives? I shan't be useless as a spy or fall below your expectations. I mean to go right through the camp till I come to Agamemnon's ship, where I assume their leaders will be discussing whether to retreat or fight on." So he spoke, and Hector took the staff in his hands and gave Dolon this oath: "Let Zeus himself, loud, thundering husband of Hera, hear me swear that no other Trojan shall ride behind those horses, and you will pride yourself on them for the rest of your days." So he spoke, swore an oath that was not to be fulfilled, and sent him on his way. Dolon at once slung his curved bow on his shoulders, threw the pelt of a grey wolf over it, put a weasel skin cap on his head, and picking up a sharp spear, set out from the camp in the direction of the ships. Not that he was destined to come back from them with news for Hector. However, once he had put behind him the crowds of horses and men in the camp, he sped keenly on his way. Olympian-born Odysseus saw him coming toward them and said to Diomedes, Here comes a man from the enemy camp, Diomedes, maybe to spy on our ships or strip some of the bodies. I can't say which. Let's wait for him to get past us a little. Then we leap out and grab him. If he's too fast for us, menace him with your spear and force him all the time toward our ships and away from his camp, so that he can't slip back into Ilium." With these words they turned off and lay down among the dead beside the path. Dolon, in complete ignorance, passed by them at a run. When he was as far ahead as the width of a day's ploughing by mules, and they are better than oxen at dragging a jointed plough through the deep soil, the two men gave chase. Dolon stopped when he heard the footsteps behind him, imagining they were friends coming from the Trojans to turn him back because Hector had changed his orders. But when they were less than a spear's throw away, he saw they were the enemy and sprinted off in flight. They were after him in a flash, as a couple of experienced sharp-toothed hunting dogs relentlessly pursue a fawn or hare, flying before them through wooded country and screaming as it goes. So Diomedes and Odysseus, sacker of cities, relentlessly chased down their man, heading him off from his own side. In fact, escaping as he was toward the Greek ships, Dolon was just about to run into the sentries when Athene gave Diomedes an extra turn of speed so that no Greek could boast he had hit Dolon before Diomedes could get him. Threatening him with his spear, mighty Diomedes spoke. "Stop, or you get it with my spear, and then I don't think you'll have long to live." He spoke and threw, but deliberately missed the man. The head of the polished spear passed right over his shoulder and stuck in the ground. Dolon came to a halt, terrified, stuttering, his teeth chattering. White with fear, his two pursuers came panting up and pinned him by the arms. He burst into tears and said, "Take me alive, and I will pay my own ransom. I have bronze and gold and wrought iron at home. My father would offer you an immense ransom from it if he heard I had been taken back to the Greek ships alive." Quick-thinking Odysseus replied and said, "Pull yourself together, man, and don't worry about dying. Now, answer my questions and tell me exactly. Where are you off to, leaving your camp like this and coming to our ships alone at the dead of night when everyone else is asleep? Was it to strip some of the dead, or did Hector send you to spy around our ships, or was it your own initiative?" Trembling, Dolon replied, I was a fool. Hector deluded me against my better judgment by promising me the horses and bronze-inlaid chariot of noble Achilles. He wanted me to make my way through the dark into enemy territory and find out whether the ships were guarded as usual or whether as a result of your defeat at our hands, that the Greeks were already discussing the possibility of flight and were so utterly exhausted that they weren't troubling to keep watch through the night. Quick-thinking Odysseus smiled and replied, "So you were after the big prize, were you? The horses of warlike Achilles. But they are hard to master and difficult to drive, at any rate for a mere man or anyone but Achilles, whose mother is a goddess. Now answer my questions and tell me exactly. Where did you leave Hector, shepherd of the people, when you came here just now? Where is his equipment lying? Where are his horses? How are the Trojan sentries disposed? And where are the rest of them sleeping? And what are they planning to do next? Do they mean to stay in their advanced position by our ships, or retreat back into the town after inflicting this defeat on the Greeks?" Dolon, son of Diomedes, replied, "I'll answer all your questions exactly. First, Hector is conferring with his advisors by the grave mound of the divine Ilus, away from all the noise, As for your question about the sentries, sir, no special guard was mounted to watch the camp or keep a lookout. The Trojans have their watchfires, and the men detailed for duty stay awake and encourage each other to keep alert. Our various allies are asleep. They leave it to us to keep watch. Their women and children aren't lying close at hand. Quick thinking, Odysseus replied and said, "How do you mean? Are your allies sleeping in the same parts of the camp as the horse-taming Trojans, or somewhere else? Be precise, I want to know." Dolon, son of Diomedes, replied, I'll answer all your questions exactly. The Carians and the Paeonians, with their crooked bows, are over by the sea with the Leleges, the Chalcones and the godlike Pelasgi, the Lycinians and lordly Mysians, the Phrygians who fight on horseback, and the Meonian charioteers were assigned ground in the direction of Thymbra. But why ask for all these details if your idea is to infiltrate the Trojan camp? There are Thracians over there. They have just arrived and are a way off at the end of the line. Rhesus, their lord, is with them. That man has the loveliest and biggest horses I have ever seen. They are whiter than snow and run like the wind. His chariot is beautifully finished with gold and silver, and he has brought some awe-inspiring pieces of golden armor with him too. A fantastic sight. Men really shouldn't wear such things. They are fit only for the immortal gods. But now take me to your ships, or tie me up tight and leave me here. You can then go and check whether I've told you the truth or not." Mighty Diomedes gave him a black look and replied, "Dolon, you have given us excellent news, but don't imagine you're going to get away now that you have fallen into our hands. If we ransom you now or let you go, you will return to the Greek ships some other time, either to spy or meet us in open fight. But if I take you and kill you, you will never be a nuisance to the Greeks again." He spoke, and Dolon, raising his great hand, was just about to touch his captor's chin in supplication when Diomedes slashed at him with his sword and caught him full on the neck. He cut through both sinews, and Dolon's head met the dust while he was still speaking. They took the weasel skin cap from his head and stripped him of his wolf's pelt, his curved bow and long spear. Then godlike Odysseus held up the trophies in his hand for Athene, goddess of spoils, to see, and spoke in prayer to her. "Let these gladden your heart, goddess, since we shall again call on you for help before any other immortal in Olympus. Help us now in our raid on the sleeping Thracians and their horses." So he spoke, raised the bundle clear of his head, and placed it high up in a tamarisk bush. Then he gathered a handful of reeds and fresh tamarisk twigs to mark the spot clearly, so that they should not miss it when they came back through the darkness of the night. The two now went ahead, threading their way through the armour and black blood, and before long reached the Thracian contingent. The men were asleep, tired out by their exertions, and their fine equipment was neatly piled in 3 rows on the ground beside them. A pair of horses stood by each man. Rhesus slept in the centre, with his swift horses beside him, tied by the reins to the end of the chariot rail. Odysseus saw him first and pointed him out to Diomedes. "That's our man, Diomedes, and there are the horses mentioned by Dolon, the man we killed. Now, put that tremendous strength of yours about. No time to stand about fiddling with your weapons. Quick, get the horses clear. Or you kill the men and I'll see to the horses." So Odysseus spoke, and grey-eyed Athene breathed strength into Diomedes, who laid about him with his sword, this way and that. Hideous groans rose from the dying men, and the earth ran red with blood. Like a lion that has found some untended sheep or goats, and leaps on them with murder in its heart, so Diomedes, son of Tydeus, dealt with the Thracians. He slaughtered 12 of them, and as he came to each and put him to the sword, quick-thinking Odysseus seized the body by the foot from behind and dragged it out. His purpose was to leave the way clear for the lovely maned horses, who were unaccustomed to their new masters and might be frightened if they trod on a body. Then Diomedes came upon Lord Rhesus, the 13th victim he robbed of his sweet life, breath gasping out of him. An evil dream had come to stand over him that night, Diomedes, son of Tydeus, through the planning of Athene. Meanwhile, all-daring Odysseus unfastened the horses from the chariot, tied them together with straps, and galloped them out of the crowded space with a lash of his bow, since it had not occurred to him to pick up the shining whip that had lain in the ornate chariot. Directly he was clear, he gave a whistle to let godlike Diomedes know. But Diomedes was in no hurry, wondering what was the most daring thing he could do next. Get hold of the chariot where the ornamented armour lay and drag it out by the shaft, hoist it up and carry it off, kill more Thracians. These thoughts were racing through his mind when Athene came up to him and said, "Son of great-hearted Tydeus, think about getting home to the hollow ships, or you may reach them in full flight. Some other god might wake the Trojans." So she spoke, and Diomedes, recognizing the voice of the goddess, mounted at once. Odysseus struck the horses with his bow, and off they flew to the Greek ships. None of this had escaped the watchful eye of Apollo, lord of the silver bow. When he saw how Athene was dancing attendance on Diomedes, he was enraged with her, and descended on the great Trojan army, where he roused one of the Thracian advisers, Hippocoon, a brave kinsman of Rhesus. Hippocoon leapt up from sleep, and when he saw the empty places where the horses had been standing, and men gasping out their lives in hideous carnage, he shrieked and called on his dear companion by name. Utter chaos ensued as shouting Trojans came running to gaze, appalled, on the terrible things the two men had done before escaping back to the hollow ships. When Odysseus and Diomedes reached the spot where they had killed Hector's spy, Odysseus, dear to Zeus, pulled up their swift horses, and Diomedes jumped down and handed up the blood-stained arms to him. Then he mounted again and lashed the horses with the whip. The willing pair flew off toward the hollow ships, eager to reach their journey's end. Nestor was the first to hear hoofbeats and said, "My friends, rulers and leaders of the Greeks, can I be mistaken, or am I right? I must speak up. The sound of racing horses came to my ears. If only Odysseus and mighty Diomedes were to be driving some fine horses at speed here from the Trojan camp. But I am terribly afraid the Trojans are on the warpath, and our two best men are in trouble." The last words were hardly out of his mouth when the two arrived. They jumped down to the ground and were welcomed by their friends with much shaking of hands and many exclamations of delight. Nestor, the Geranian charioteer, was the first to question them. "Tell me, celebrated Odysseus, great glory of the Greeks, how did you get hold of these horses? By infiltrating the Trojan camp, or did some god meet you on the way and make you a present of them? They shine like the rays of the sun. I am always meeting the Trojans in battle. In fact, I can claim that I never stay behind by the ships, old as I am for a fighting man. But I have never seen or imagined horses like these. I think you met a god, and he gave them to you. Zeus, who marshals the clouds, is very fond of you both, and so is his daughter, grey-eyed Athene." Quick-thinking Odysseus replied and said, "Nestor, son of Neleus, great glory of the Greeks. The gods have greater powers than men, and if one of them wished to make us a present, he could easily produce an even finer pair. But to answer your question, venerable sir, these horses have only just arrived, and they are Thracian. Brave Diomedes killed their master and the 12 best men in the contingent beside him. The 13th man, beside Rhesus, was the spy we caught near the ships, sent to reconnoitre our camp by Hector and the rest of the noble Trojans." With these words he drove the horses across the ditch, laughing, and the other Greeks followed him, exultant. When they reached Diomedes' well-built hut, they tied the pair up with leather straps at the mangers where Diomedes' own swift horses stood munching their honey-sweet barley. Odysseus put Dolon's blood-stained equipment in the stern of his ship until they could prepare their sacrifice to Athene. Then they waded into the sea to wash the sweat from their shins, neck, and thighs. When the waves had removed the sweat from their bodies and they felt refreshed, they went and bathed themselves in polished baths. Then, after washing and covering themselves liberally with olive oil, they sat down to eat, and from a full mixing bowl drew off sweet wine and poured libations to Athene.